Please help me and join me in welcoming Lisa DiTullio.
I hear that last night was so much fun that there's a few people who might be sleeping in a little bit this morning. Apparently the boat was something to, and those cocktails I hear really made the evening. Thank you for those of you who did decide to get up at the crack of dawn this morning and join me. I'm very grateful for that. We're going to spend the first hour this morning talking a little bit on a different topic, which has to do with the softer sides of project management, team activities, and what we do. In spite of an amazing product portfolio that we get through Upland, there are the realities associated with the fact that we still need to work with people. And sometimes those people issues can get in our way. So my objective and my goal this morning is to introduce some very practical things that ideally you are able to take with you and apply immediately. Nothing will be complicated. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And hopefully it will make a little bit of sense when you put it all together and you do need to work with those team folks in order to get things done. The reality is in today's world, it's virtually impossible for us to deliver a project through a party of one. And it gets incredibly complicated because not only do we need to go across the organization and ideally select the people that we want to support the project needs and or requirements, but nowadays we have to invite the external parties as well. You know, the consultants, the business partners, the vendors. And all of a sudden, before we know it, all those folks have different ways of operating, different work styles, and regardless of our keen attempts of trying to keep them focused predominantly on the resources and the specific objectives of the project, the little stuff will derail us along the way. So today my goal is to do exactly that, take some of the sand out of the gears and give you an opportunity to not necessarily like each other a little bit more, but to be more productive and effective and efficient throughout the process. Let me introduce you first to my philosophy. It's an important one. I'm going to give you a story about my upbringing. I come from a large Italian family. It was traditional practice when I was growing up that after the required Sunday Mass, we'd all hop into the car, we'd go to my grandparents' house, and we would spend the day playing with my cousins. They lived on the ocean. It was the perfect place as a kid growing up. They had the ocean across the street. They had a pool in the backyard. So when we got there, we'd jump out of the car, we'd make a beeline for the beach, we'd swim until, and we came from New England, we'd swim until we were truly numb and couldn't feel our toes any longer. They'd call us in for dinner, we'd gouge ourselves on a whole lot of pasta. They'd make us sit for that required 30 minutes to digest before we could go back into the water. Then we usually hop into the pool, frolic some more, and then it would be time to go home. Relentlessly, no matter how much I ate at my grandparents' house, on the way back home, I would relentlessly beg my dad, please stop at the ice cream store. We lived in this tiny little town, one ice cream store, that was it. It's still in existence today. On a hot summer day, you can imagine how busy it would be. Because I was rather persuasive in my begging to stop at the ice cream store, we would 9 out of 10 times stop. I think it was just to quiet me up. And we would jump out of the car and I would impatiently wait in the long line, waiting my turn to order my ice cream. And as I did that, I would stand up and watch the colors in front of me and consider my options. And I'd think, I'm going for chocolate chip. No, I'm going for butternut crunch. No, this week I'm having peppermint stick. And the line would inch up a little bit more, and as I got closer to the window, I'd be amazed by the rainbow of colors in front of me. And yet every single time it was my turn to order, I would say, I'll have vanilla, please. When you think about the flavor of vanilla, think about it as it comes into terms of what happens in our workplace. Vanilla is pure, it's a simple flavor. And when you acquire a taste for it, you can start to get decadent and add all the toppings. And the unique thing about, and the cool thing about vanilla is, no matter what you layer on top, you never ruin the foundational base in which you started with. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Manhattan. My oldest daughter lives there. We went over to Brooklyn early on a Saturday afternoon, and we met a gentleman who owns a gelato shop. He concocts over 200 crazy gelato flavors every single day. And he gets up, obviously, in the middle of the night, goes into his shop to start concocting. And they're crazy flavors like cheddar cheese, rose petal, and there's some flavors that, for some of you, it's way too early for me to tell you what he puts inside them. But what happens when I started talking to John Snyder, the owner of this gelato shop, I said, what's the secret of your success? And we had this good kumbaya moment because he said, regardless of what flavor I concoct, I start with vanilla. For the exact same reason. It's pure, and that gives him the consistency that's just right for him to concoct all those flavors. When we think about what we're doing in our organizations, particularly as it pertains to projects and project management, the ideal state for every organization is to be serving a whole lot of vanilla and go with the mantra that project management is the work, it's never extra work. And for those of us who can embrace that and maintain very simple practices in order to get it done, then that's where we get winning performances out of everyone. So I know it's a little bit early this morning. I'm going to serve you up just a little bit of vanilla. Let me talk a little bit about what we are barraged with anytime we turn on TVs in today's world. There's reality ad nauseum. When you look at some of the shows that are out there, particularly those that focus on teamwork of some type or another, we see all sorts of examples of good team, bad team, mediocre teams, and things that we say, that's not a team whatsoever, what are they talking about? And the reality is, more likely than not, many of us tend to remember the ugliness of the team dynamics and not necessarily the greatness. Donald Trump, whether you like him or think his cool hairdo is cool or not, he has a great quote. He says, it takes a very special type of leader to bring together a veritable group of strangers, and in order to pull them together, to get them to perform and get the winning performances out of each and every one of them. And he's absolutely right, because when we think about what we do when we launch our projects, we tend to look for the A players, the folks who know the most, the subject matter experts, the people who are really smart in the areas that we're not that smart in our project manager role, but we need to rely on their expertise in order to deliver that project successfully. The challenge with that is when we bring all those A players together, sometimes stuff happens that isn't necessarily the way that we hope or predict it to be. And yet we are going so fast to get that project up and out of the starting gate, we have very little time to set them up and put them into a true team formation. When we think about, so what's the difference between a group and a team, it tends to be 4 predominant characteristics that differentiate the two. When you take a look at this illustration, it tells you that teams, in a true team formation, they have shared objectives. They know what it is they're trying to achieve, and there's lots of clarity. There's no question about it. They know exactly where the finish line is, and they know what's at the end of it once they reach it. In addition to that, all of us know that when we recruit the people to put them on our projects, there's interdependencies across every member on that project team. They're there for a reason. We've invited them to the project party for a purpose. And 9 out of 10 of them, very seldom, are going to be able to work with blinders on and not be able to interact with others. But because we're bringing in a diverse group of individuals with varying levels of competency and skill set, we're going to have a whole lot of differences that we're going to deal with. And in today's matrix world, it doesn't matter who they fundamentally report to for the purposes of the project. When you're leading that team, you're it. Not only do you have the responsibility of delivering the project successfully, you have the responsibility of bringing the family all together. And as a result of that, we've got to be accountable, both individually and collectively as a group. When we think about those 4 predominant distinctions of how we differentiate between a group and a team, think about it for just a minute, if you will, as to how that corresponds to being on a project. The ideal state before any project gets out of the starting gate is that everyone on that team should know the answers to all of these 4 areas and be able to rattle them off effortless every time. They should know exactly what the opportunity of this project is, either the problem they're trying to solve or the